Yeah. Yeah, that's cool, man.
Yeah, good. So, so on Larch, this is the Save the Trees site in Highbury Corner, Islington. There are 8 trees here in this compound and another 2 over there that we're defending, that they're wanting to fell for this luxury housing development that will go 6 stories high, right on the corner where
6 stories?
Yeah, there are no other buildings of that size on this corner. The only reason they want to push it on this corner rather than building on the car parks, which they are going to do for some social housing, but they want the luxury housing here so it gets a different postcode to the flats. And this is exactly the kind of thinking that's got us into the climate and ecological emergency, and we've got institutional racism and all the forms of oppression we've got. Is the us haves and have-nots, you know, the 1% working for the 1%,
yeah,
and the 99% left to suffer. So we need to develop housing on brownfield sites. There are 84 brownfield sites in the borough. The borough has declared a climate and ecological emergency. It needs to change the way it does plans, does development, according to the climate and ecological emergency. And fundamentally that means listening to people. People do not want to see these trees killed. They want to keep this site. They want to see the development on brownfield sites. Everyone wants housing, of course. We need more affordable housing. What we don't need is luxury housing. We need integrated, properly sustainable housing for everyone. And so we need to change the way we do everything. We're heading towards societal collapse. That's what the science says. So it's the most serious threat humanity's ever faced. And we need enough people to admit that, to be willing and brave enough to face that fully and to look at the suffering that that is already causing, and what's coming down the line is so much worse. We need to work through. We've all got some level of soft denial. Every day, some of us will switch off to the fact that we're in the greatest catastrophe humanity's ever created and ever faced. It's an existential threat, that the science is saying we're heading towards a societal collapse. Every day some of us forget that and carry on with our life, business as usual. But business as usual is death, it's killing us. 1,000 children die already every day because of climate change, and that figure is going to accelerate massively if we don't turn things around. The science says we've got 3 months to take it from emissions going up to emissions coming down. And if we don't do that, the risk of societal collapse accelerates exponentially. That's the UN General Secretary has been saying that for 2 years. He sits above the IPCC, which is the world's top scientist on climate change. So he gets the reports and the research before we all see it. And for 2 years, he's been saying, got to the end of 2020 to take it from emissions going up to emissions coming down. That's how desperate it is, how urgent and serious.
How long are you guys here?
We arrived 6 weeks ago tomorrow. Initially it was a different group. It was Extinction Rebellion Islington, held the site for 3 weeks, and then they negotiated with the council that the council would run a citizens' assembly on climate and ecological emergency and housing, and that they would use the money they saved from taking them to court to get them off to plant extra saplings. However, they were talking about 20 extra saplings. Now, to evict this place will cost thousands, if not more, hundreds of thousands of pounds potentially. So to think that you can fell 8 mature trees or 20 mature trees, because it will be 20 in total, and then plant 20 extra saplings, and that's going to come anywhere near making a difference, shows the sort of soft denial that we're all in. That's an extreme form of denial there, because these trees lock up carbon. It's going to take another 50 to 70 years. These trees are just producing their full capacity of locking up carbon, stabilising the soils, providing habitat. We haven't got another 50 years to plant saplings now and wait for that. That thinking is what's got us in this emergency. For 50 years we've known the science and we've carried on burning fossil fuels.
Money.
Yeah, but we've got to stop burning fossil fuels and felling trees, and we've got to start planting thousands of trees in the borough, billions of trees globally. So because that concession that the council were offering was farcical, other people said, no, we can't let these trees die. So then a new group stepped in 3 weeks ago, saved the trees, and we've been supporting them and working with them as part of that since then. So for 3 weeks we've been here in this occupation. We were in court on Thursday.
My missus just seen it this morning, so she said she wasn't sure if you were still here.
Absolutely, we're still here. We need to get that message out, and we're encouraging everyone to come down and support us in whatever way they can.
What happened on Thursday then?
Thursday we were in the High Court. Now, usually when we have a situation like this, where we are basically protecting these trees and using the rights we have to squat, to house ourselves under Section 6 of the Criminal Law Act 1977, so we've got a lawful squat here. Usually when that happens, the landowner will approach them and try and negotiate. In fact, there's a protocol within the legal system that says you're supposed to go and negotiate first and try and see if there's any way you can come to an agreement to get the people off your land if it's your land. They didn't do that. We haven't heard from the council. The first time I spoke to anyone from the council was in court on Thursday. And then even then, after it was pretty much after the case had finished, I spoke to him and I said, we then got kicked out of the court because they were closing. And I said, well, perhaps we can speak outside. And but he didn't. He took it off. So
no contact.
So we had no contact, and then so there was, and then what normally happens then is you have some sort of contact and some sort of negotiation. Hello there. You okay? You willing to speak to the camera for a minute or a second? This is John. He does a YouTube channel. This is Liam, who lives locally. He's in the sustainable construction industry.
Tell us about it, man. What's going to happen here?
Well, I think Larch is probably a better place to tell you what's going to happen. I was obviously hoping that you was going to be able to stay here.
But you could tell them about the contract and the fact that the council have the power to save these trees still.
Yeah, well, it's well within the council's power to save the trees, and it was within their power not to attempt to cut them down in the first place.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, but when you're judge and jury at the same time, you're incredibly powerful.
Of course you are, yeah.
And then you just need to try to put your own political ambitions aside and look at the bigger picture and actually what the people want. And I think that's the reality, is that the locals, including people in the building, made it quite clear that they didn't want the trees removed.
What kind of support have you guys got here?
Sorry?
What kind of support have you got from the locals?
Well, I think I'd say within the building there's obviously people there that, a lot of the people there are on subsidised rent. It's going to be very difficult for them to speak out against the council. So I think there's a lot of abstaining. But for the people that are able to speak out, such as myself and the people across the road, everyone is wanting these trees to stay.
Of course they do.
And quite frankly, the building that's being proposed here is not of sufficient quality to justify cutting down the trees either. So at some point, you've got to just ask the question why. And the other thing is that if it's purely financial, which is my understanding, then why not build somewhere else on a brownfield side? And
I mean, what is it going to do to the people living in this estate? It's going to. Is it 6 floors high or something?
It is completely out of proportion to the neighbouring buildings, or indeed anything on this.
It's going to block out light and everything, and air, and then there's going to be the pollution.
Contextual, it makes absolutely no sense at all. Architecturally, it is mediocre at best, and from an urban perspective, it's a disaster, really. And it's disappointing that it's possible in today's day and age to actually put buildings in places that shouldn't have buildings and also then cause damage at the same time. Because let's be honest here, the only reason it's possible is because they're saying that what they're doing is better than what they've got.
Yes, that's what they're saying, isn't it? Yeah.
And I don't believe that in the slightest. I don't think any rational person would.
Well, thank you for speaking to us, and I wish you guys all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, man.
Right.
So getting back to the court. So what was the decision by the judge then? And
the legal system in this country has been created by the elite to protect the interests of the elite, particularly to protect their property. So we didn't have justice on Thursday. We only had 2 days to prepare our case. We had no time to get legal representation. We managed to get 30 witness statements together. We were told, and I believe it's true, that if this case was against persons unknown, and if your person's unknown, you're allowed to bring your witness statements to the court and have them admitted then. So we did that. Not one of our 30 witness statements was read or seen by the judge. They broke up for 15 minutes, and I thought the judge would go through and look at them, but he didn't. He went off into a different room, and their barrister looked through them, decided which ones of them he was going to allow and consider, and which ones he wasn't. He then summarised them for the court and argued against them. So it's absolutely a farce for justice.
of course it is. So you had nobody representing you whatsoever?
No, we had a friend who's a student, represented us as a Mackenzie's friend. He was up through the night preparing a defence, and he did a very good job, but it was full of mistakes, you know, as he would admit and as we all saw. And as he made the point very strongly, saying, look, these people have not had
Time.
they have not had the ability to have legal representation. Can we have at least 24 hours? Just 24 hours so that we can prepare a case, and they wouldn't allow it.
So what's their outcome then?
So the judge, in his judgment, said, I have to weigh up the rights, human rights that we all have, the right to housing, the right to freedom of speech, the right to self-expression, and the right to protest. I have to weigh that up with the right to property. And he sided on the right to property. Of course he did, because the legal system that we've got in this country has been created to protect the right of property for the elite. So what my statement said, which was not even considered by the court, one of the majority that weren't, said that we were in a climate and ecological emergency. So the context in which we have to weigh up the right to protest with the right to property is a different context. We've never been in this context before. When we are protesting to try and save society from collapse, our right to protest is surely different than when we're protesting about, you know, whatever else we might protest about ever in history, because there cannot be a more significant cause. And so the context is different, and the law has to reflect that, and it has not done at all. So we need a law of ecocide. We need to pass the Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill. So this is a bill that's before Parliament. Many different organisations are getting on board, coming together to promote this bill. I think last I saw there were 77 MPs that support the bill, which is unprecedented for a private member's bill. Because let's face it, the establishment isn't going to try and save us. The establishment's got us in this crisis. So we've pressured and got a private member's bill which got 77 MPs behind it. If everyone watching this, if you've got 15,000 subscribers, everyone took action, we could get this bill passed, and that would be the best chance we've got of avoiding societal collapse. So it's doable, it's there, it's achievable. We've got this most horrendous thing coming towards us, but we can make a difference if just enough people lobby their MP and start to tell the truth personally, like looking every day at the reality that we're heading towards societal collapse. What am I going to do about it? So I have given up both my jobs and my family life. I've not seen my partner for 2 months. It was her birthday 2 days ago. We've been together 13 years, and she understands, because I'm a scientist. For 25 years I've studied this.
You're a scientist?
Yeah.
Wow.
So for 25 years I've studied this, and I've seen it coming. On my watch, the crisis has exacerbated and has accelerated, and we're now at the point of...
It's here.
Yeah, exactly. So my specialism is in sustainability and the social science of how we change to address the crisis. So the answer to that is civil disobedience. Enough people stepping up in enough of a way. So I could no longer stay in my job, which makes sense if we have another 20 years, but it doesn't make sense if we just got a few months. So that's why I've had to give up my work and do this full time. So those are the kind of sacrifices, when we really tell the truth, that we're willing to make. So the more people that step up and tell the truth, then the more people will be able to take appropriate action. Because it doesn't need everyone, it just needs enough people. And that can be a small number of people if we take enough appropriate and targeted action. Right now, I would invite everyone to lobby their MP to support the Climate Neutral Emergency Bill, and also to have a look at our website, Save the Trees. We've got a fundraiser, and also the work I do with HS2 Rebellion. Again, we've got a fundraiser there. HS2 is the most destructive scheme the UK's ever done. So, as an objective scientist, I look
one
at
of the most expensive as well, isn't it?
Most expensive railway ever in the history of the world, mile per mile. So I've looked, as a scientist, I've looked at the whole situation, gone, where's the biggest impact I can have right now, and that is to work full-time on HS2. However, I've got invited to come here because what this shows is that it doesn't matter where you are or what the issue is, anywhere we've all got the opportunity to take a stand on the climate and ecological emergency and on societal collapse. Because these 8 trees could just seem like a local issue, but it's no longer a local issue, because these 8 trees are symbolic and a direct part of what's wrong and driving societal collapse. This council has the power to make a change about it, and everyone passing by does. So whatever it is you're able to do it in your area and point it towards the climate ecological emergency and societal collapse.
Is there anything else you'd like to add? How long do you reckon you're going to be here?
Oh, well, we've been given until Wednesday. So we've got 5 street homeless guys that have been living in doorways. They've been living here. That's why we built these comfortable shacks so they can be warm. One of them is terminally ill, and one of them is he's had an operation, so he's recovering from that. He's got to have another operation on Monday, so he's going to be in recovery from that. So the judge did not even get to hear that, even though they'd written statements.
Yeah.
So really encourage everyone to come and help us in whatever way you can. Contact Islington Borough Council and ask them to change their plans. Contact Higgins, which is the contractor. Ask them to not develop this unit on these trees, and to tell the council it's willing for the council to execute its contract variation clause. So every building contract that the contract writes, it writes in a variation clause, so it can vary the contract. All it has to do is vary the contract not to build these units on this land, and then they can develop units that they need on brownfield sites. But what they really need to do is pause this. So if people wrote to Higgins or lobbied Higgins, called Higgins, they could say to them, look, please do the honourable thing. Tell the council that you'd be willing to cooperate with them if they vary the contract, and lobby the council to get them to vary the contract. If everyone did that, these trees would be saved. Equally, people could come here on Wednesday morning early and help us defend from the bailiffs. Because at the moment, the bailiffs are due here Wednesday.
And that would be early?
Yeah, they tend to come in first light, which is about 7 o'clock.
Okay. Well, thank you, Lars, for talking to me.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you kindly, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks.